today we've got Mark Weekley, the one and only Mark Weekley from Simpson Weekley. So, Mark, hello, first of all.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Nice
and
to
you?
see you. Got a white shirt or something.
Got the messenger.
So, just quickly, Mark, just tell us a little bit about your business. Size, how many people work there and things like that. And then I've got a few questions I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got the Simpson Weekley set up back in 2010. It's about 13 and a half years ago now. And myself and Andrew Simpson, who's got Simpson and Partners, decided to open up in Rushden. So we opened up an office there. And then about 8 years ago, we opened up the Wellingborough office as well. So I've got the two offices, the Rushden office and the Wellingborough office. And we run it as part of the Simpsons group. So you've got the Simpson Partners branches, Simpson West, Simpson Weekley. We run it as one big network. So
okay, fantastic. And how many people do you have?
Great. So probably Simpson Weekley, around about 13, 14 people.
Okay.
If you include sort of part-time, full-time staff. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So Mark, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me how you got to because you're one of the directors there, aren't you?
Yes.
So
yeah.
Tell me how did that journey start for you? How did you get to where you are today?
Depends how far back you want to go, really. When I went to school, and I was okay at school, it wasn't exactly exciting, but there's nothing exciting to talk about. But I was just a good kid, I suppose, but I definitely wasn't some A-star student. And all I wanted to do was leave and start working, start earning money. So I left as soon as I could when I was 16, and I actually did an apprenticeship as an electrician. I remember my mum saying to me, I'm not sure, you're academic really, and perhaps you should go for a manual job, and which is ironic. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, ironic, bear in mind I've been working in an office for the last 20 odd years. but yeah, so I ended up going to an apprenticeship as an electrician.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed it a little bit, but to be honest, I blew up some really expensive equipment one day, nearly blew up the same bit of equipment the following day, and I was very accident prone as well, so the job probably wasn't quite right for me. Job, yeah. And I think I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. That's, I think ever since I was 11, I started going around. I set up a car wash rota by going around to neighbours and knocking on doors. It's when I look back, I was really young at the time to be doing that. And going around, I think it was £1 to wash a car, £1.50 to wash and dry it. And I got a whole rota going until one day I had the guts to go and speak to a garage nearby us. It's gone now. It's been knocked down and flats built there, unfortunately. But yeah, I ended up saying, look, could I wash your cars? £1.50, I'll wash and dry them all. And he had 10 cars on the forecourt. And I was thinking, this is big money here, £10 a week or £15 a week. But he ended up saying, look, you can wash and dry them for £1 a car. So I thought, okay, I'll take that. So yeah, so I always done stuff like that. And I ended up doing mobile discos when I was 14. I ended up setting up a 7-a-side football league business at one point. And I ended up I was just to buy bikes or cars and fix them up and sell them on. It's just something I've always done. It's the actual thing for me, I suppose. So
I think that's a really interesting thing. So I've always done stuff like that, and I've always wanted to do my own business as well. And I used to do bouncy castles and balloons.
Did you?
And things like this. So
Brilliant.
It's really interesting because it does just follow you for life. That sort of mindset actually just follows you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not always even looking for those opportunities. I think the ideas just pop up sometimes. You think, well, that's something I could do. So yeah, so I did that. So anyway, when I was doing the electrician side of things, I made quite a big decision at the time to quit it 2 years in. And so I didn't have my qualifications or anything, but I wanted to go back to college and just learn about business. I wasn't interested about grades or anything like that. I just wanted to learn, which, bizarrely actually meant I did the best I probably ever did in education when I was there, because I wasn't bothered about the grades. I was wanting to learn. So I took a lot on board. And I left still not knowing what I really wanted to do as a job. And my stepdad sort of said to me, look, you were best at sales. Why don't you go for car sales or estate agency? So I applied for a couple of jobs. I got 2 interviews and offered both. And thankfully, I decided the estate agency route. And that was that. And then even that wasn't plain sailing. I did it. And in the first year, I ended up sort of deciding to become a driving instructor. So I started training for that. And I went for one of the practical assessments. And this guy, I think he's well past retirement age, filling in. And he sort of said, before we got in the car, he said, right, I just need you to read that number plate. And I read it. And he said, no, that one, the car down there. I said, well, I can barely see the car. He said, you being serious? I said, yes, I'm sorry, I can't take this any further. I said, oh, great. So that didn't happen. I found out I couldn't see very well, so I had to get glasses and things then. But I just never went back to it really. So I carried on doing estate agency. I was enjoying that. And I ended up leaving at one point for a week because, the grass is always greener, isn't it? And people will tell me about this is brilliant, that's fantastic. And I went to work for Phones for You. I even had to do the whole learn that Phones for You. But it was for the corporate. So it was just cold calling businesses, trying to get them to, it just wasn't me. So I left, I think a week later, I rang up the area manager of where I was working and he literally answered the phone and said, "Hello, Mark. Things not as rosy as you thought." I said, "No." He said, "Come back, we'll give you a promotion." I said, "Oh, great." So I went back and then eventually I got approached by a guy called Nick, a good friend of mine now, and he asked me to go and manage his estate agency branch in Rushden. And I did that for a couple of years and learned a lot from him, actually. I think when I first started, he ended up saying to me, it took me weeks before I accepted the job because it had to be right. You can't fail when you take your first manager's job on, can you? Because that follows you.
Cool.
So it had to be right. But, I thought about it, I prayed about it, I decided that was the right thing to do. And I took the job and he said to me on one of the first days, he said, "If you treat this office like your own business, you'll do well." And I did. I'd stay there. I'd be there hours after the office is closed, still ringing people or doing work or whatever because I wanted to make it work. And I think it was about 7th or 8th in the town when I took over and we ended up being top in the town. Wow. So it worked and it went really well. There were good times, about 2005, 6, that sort of time, 7. And then he sold the business and I was due to open up with somebody else and something just didn't feel right. And I pulled out. It's not the right time. So I pulled out and that was just before the market crashed. And literally just before the market crashed. So I ended up doing recruitment for a estate agency. I took on a franchise. I did recruitment for a estate agency, which is actually where I ended up meeting Andrew Simpson because I asked him a couple of members of staff. We met a couple of times. And long story short, we ended up agreeing to open up an office ourselves, and that's how the Rushden office came about.
Okay, so you got to that business ownership quite quickly, really, didn't you? How many years from getting into agency to sort of opening up? Bearing in mind there's a recession in the middle as well.
Yeah, so 7. Well, I started in agency as a weekender initially, very, very briefly, and I was 20 then, I think. Right. So I'm 41 now, been open, 13 and a half years, so 15 years ago. Yeah, so about 5.5 years.
He did it quick. I mean, that was what your route, I haven't done all those other jobs in between, but I was a Saturday boy and then became, negotiator value. And that was my route as well. So it's really interesting. So let me ask you a question. So at the moment, so you're in your business, what's the biggest problems you think to the industry, to the sales industry? What's the biggest challenges the industry's got at the moment?
I think the obvious thing at the moment is obviously the interest rates. It's always going to be a big difficulty when your interest rates are going up. But I think last year was pretty horrific, the last few months, because I think people would go in bed with a mortgage they were planning on getting at 2.something% perhaps, and then waking up the following day and all of a sudden it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% all withdrawn altogether. And I think that shock factor affected the market. So a lot of people putting out of sales, people not wanting to buy, lenders not wanting to lend because everyone wants to wait and see what happens. And going into January and February, as normal January and February, was a bit better. Perhaps not normal January and February, but it was definitely better. And I think over time, what happens is people, I suppose they start to get used to it, becomes the new normal. So people get used to it a little bit. And people have been buying. I think if you approach the market correctly, things are still selling. But obviously at the moment, it's a big issue for people again at the moment. I think my concern more is probably more for what's going to happen for people that have got mortgages now in the next 12 months, 18 months, where they've had 2 years or whatever fixed mortgage rate. They bought in the peak, the price have dropped a little bit, and they're worried about what's going to happen when the remortgaging comes up and they can't afford to pay the mortgage. So I think we'll see a lot of properties come on the market then. But look, whatever happens to the market, I've always been a strong believer that properties will still sell. If you approach the market in the right way, the majority of people looking to sell will probably still be looking to buy. So it's just about how you make that work. And I think we had that when I first opened. When I first opened, I think a few people said to me, look, we knew you'd open, but are you mad opening now? We're in the bottom of a recession. The market is terrible. There was houses we were taking on the market. They've been on the market for 2 years plus before we put them on. So it was a bad time, but we managed to establish ourselves quite quickly because I think we just tried to change how we do things to suit the market we're in, So I do think there's a difficulty with the market. And I think actually the lettings market also, it's not just sales. My biggest concern with lettings market, it's a brilliant market from a landlord perspective. But of course, it's the rent side of things and how expensive everything is. And I don't say that change anytime soon, because I think there's obstacles that have been put there by the government that probably make it quite difficult for landlords now compared before, and not as attractive for them, or what they perceive it to be not as attractive. And then you end up having rental rates going up and up and up. So
interesting points there. I just wanted to touch base on as well, just while I was making notes there, is that I went to Property Mark, did their conference just recently, last few days, and I went there, and it was really interesting because what they were talking about interest rates, and they were saying that people are worried about interest rates, but they were saying that the government lenders have been it's been a lot tougher as getting mortgages, and one of the reasons they're being tough is because when lenders were stress testing interest rates at about 7%, so people, affordability wise, until it gets to about, if interest rates go up 7%, we start to worry people may actually struggle to be able to actually afford those. So they were not that worried about repossessions, because they were saying that probably people can afford to do that. And that's the difference between now and the last recession, because last recession people couldn't actually afford it. Then more properties came on the market, so house prices went down. They didn't think, the people that were there, the speakers from Rightmove and some economists, didn't think that was going to really happen this time. So that's good news. That's good news.
Great. And I think that's the problem. I think there's so much negative news all the time.
Yeah.
That you don't hear the positive stuff. And I do think that we said earlier, didn't we? I think in this country, we talk ourselves into bad situations sometimes. So I think it's going to be difficult for people, but I don't think it's ever going to be as bad as people make it out to be.
Well, the other thing they said, which surprised me, the figures though, they've reckoned about 40% of 40% of people that buy property are cash. So it's affecting 60% of the market. So that's another good thing. So you got the stress test, you got only 40%. And I think there was a broker that we use work, and again, there's actually some good deals out there. There's still some good deals out there. So a lot of people locked in for 5 years. So hopefully there's positivity there, and that we're going to ride it out. And it's not about it's been something more than Mike. Historically,
I think we will
5%. I mean, historically that's nothing. We're not a 15-18%, which is has been in the past.
The problem is we got so used to borrowing money pretty much for free, and that's not sustainable, is it? And the problem, it happened for so long, I think people just accepted that as being normal, and so then it becomes such a shock factor. If it had all happened gradually, it wouldn't have been such an issue, but I think because it suddenly went from here to here, it becomes a big issue, and understandably, but I think we'll be fine. I think give it a year, 18 months, 2025 in particular, I think will be very different. I think we just got to ride this wave. But as always with the housing market, it does this, but it always ends up better, doesn't it? So it's just riding it through the difficult time.
And also, I think this market, any market like this, is great opportunity for good agent. Good agents. I think what happens, unfortunately, people do go to the wall, and quite often that's the people that are not giving that service to the clients, and that's just, I suppose, that's just the market saying, you're not giving me good enough solutions, so we're not going to use you, and that. But it leaves some real opportunities for really good businesses. And I know you guys really, you really work hard, and you really focus on service, and you're the type of agent that should succeed in this sort of market. So,
100%. I think that it's I think in a market like we've had over the last couple of years, I'm not being funny. Anyone can sell a house. You put a house on the internet and someone just calls you and says, I want to go and have a look at it. If not 10 people call you want to have a look at it and buy it. So it's when the market gets a bit tougher like this, I think that's when you start to see the difference with the quality of service you get from agents, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the other thing you picked up on, Mark, just interesting, is they were talking about landlords, and they when they did a survey, they found a lot of larger landlords are probably happy to stay in the market, but they think there's probably more coming in with smaller maybe someone's got just one property, because they're kind of fed up with the compliance, the EPC rating, there's more complexity, so they thought with taxation wise it's going not really helping them anymore. So they thought there'd be some property introduced to the market that way, but again, not bad enough to impact on prices.
No, I think that's from when you look at from a landlord's perspective. Okay, look, interest rates high if you enter with a mortgage, but equally rental figures at the moment you're achieving are higher than we've ever seen before. Yeah. So there is an advantage to it, and I still think long term there's nowhere better to put the money. And one of the things that I think is quite interesting for us as a group, even with the number of people that have been selling their properties because they want to make the most of it whilst the prices were high, or because they're worried prices are going to keep dropping, or for whatever reason they're looking to get rid of the properties they're currently letting out, we've actually not dropped in the number of properties we manage. Okay. So for everyone that's been taken away, we've replaced it with a new investor that's bought. So again, there's still a market there. The problem is we need a lot more stock, don't we? Because the amount of people that are looking to rent at the moment. But that's good news for people selling to investors, and good news for investors looking to buy something as well.
So what are you doing about that? Interest rates are a problem. So does that mean you got a few buyers coming on? And so what are you doing to kind of expand your market share and make that up? What are you doing? You got any initiatives that you?
I think there's numerous things. Like I said, I've always believed you have to change what you do depending on the market you're in. So if you do the same thing for every market, then your figures will just reflect whether the market's doing well or not. But I think you can minimise that. You're still going to have it slightly, but you can minimise it in how you approach things. So put a house on Rightmove, on Zoom, on this and the other, that's brilliant. Using social media, that's fantastic. But for me, I think a huge proportion of our sales come from us ringing people we've got registered, people that have called us about another property, finding out, it's the basics, finding out not just what they want, but why they need it. Because actually they say 4 bedrooms, but they need 3 in a study, or whatever it is. So it's been a little bit more creative in that way. And also, I think one of the big issues people have at the moment is people looking at all their buyers and saying, we've got dependent buyers, people that haven't sold their property, they're not in a position to proceed yet. And so something we thought about when we opened, actually, I came up with this idea. I called it at the time Enable to Move. And I'll give away all the secrets here. But what I did is I ended up getting a list of all the buyers we had locally and all the sellers we had. So all the buyers that had a property locally and all the people looking to sell on the market with us, people that are on with other agents as well. And trying to create one centralised hub of buyers where we can try and match them up to buy each other's property. Now, the ideal situation is you've got 2 people buy each other, so they don't have to wait for a proceedable buyer. But you can expand that. So if you've got 4 people, that person's looking to buy that person's house. That person's looking to buy that one's. That one's looking to buy that one's. But eventually, you might buy that one, wants to buy that one. You get 4 people all on the market waiting for someone who's proceedable, and all they have to do is move around one. So if one of those sales is on with another estate agent, you don't get anything from it. Who cares? They probably know you've been involved, great for your reputation, but you get 3 sales from it. So it's just constantly being a little bit creative about where buyers come from, rather than just doing the norm.
So that's very creative. I like that. I like that idea. But the initial bit is stuff that agents should always be doing, like mining their database. And
of course, it
doesn't happen, doesn't it? And you hit that nail on the head. That we've kind of been an industry where we've been order takers and not making sales. So we've been just taking orders. Like what? Not as it. There's nothing wrong with working with McDonald's, but it's kind of like the person's. He's come to your till, he's going to buy something. So it's been that type of thing. Whereas now, this is why I say it's an opportunity for good agents, because you need to make sales happen. But if you can make them happen, it is a massive opportunity.
It's that whole proactive over being reactive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, definitely. So Mark, you said that, but what, you as a business owner, what's the biggest challenge for a business at the moment, as a estate agency business?
Do you know what I think it is? It's probably more, if I put it this way, I think just with the business as a whole, it's always moving forward, isn't it? I've always said that business is it's like going down a travelator backwards. Whatever you do, you've got to work hard to get forward. But the second you stop moving forward, you go backwards. There's no standing still in business, is there? True. If you're not doing anything, you're going backwards. So you've got to constantly keep doing what you can to move forwards. And I think we've made a lot of changes over the last 18 months, 2 years or so. And I think a lot of businesses, not just in this industry, have, because of COVID. I think things have changed, haven't they? How people work, their work-life balance has changed, how they approach things, what people expect from people. I think there's definitely a big difference there. And that's just not just for customers, but staff and everything. So I think you have to change how you do things. And I think a lot of businesses have brought forward things they probably would have done over the next 5-10 years. They've done in the last year or so instead. So, I think that's adjusting in that way and making sure we're constantly focused on being at the head of the game, doing things rather than just being followers many years behind and trying to keep up is probably what we've learned, I suppose.
So I'm a strong believer in that. And I quote Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said that it's not the strongest that survive, it's the people that are able to adapt to change that survive. And that's true in business. And I think one of the things that sometimes it's tough, isn't it? Because we're getting more expectations placed upon us. But, I think that's just life. I mean, that is the way society moves on. This always gets better. So nowadays, like if my Amazon Prime package doesn't arrive in that morning, whether I need it or not, if it doesn't arrive, I'm like angry about it, Yeah. But I expect that. So why wouldn't I want to give that service to my agents and to my clients? I want to give that. And I think if people are thinking, they're going to fight change or, I don't want to do that, we're deluding ourselves because change is going to happen whether we like it or not. So the thing to do is be at the head of like you are. I'm going to ask you in a second about, what you're doing, the next 12 months maybe, but we all need to be ahead of the curve because things are going to change whether we like it or not. So you can either go fighting and kicking and be at the back of the queue when everyone's already done the stuff, or you could be at the front of the queue and just, grab the ball by the horns and start making improvements, because at the end of the day, we'll get rewarded on solutions. So if we've got a great solution for our clients, they're always going to want to come back to us, always going to want to use us.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
So Mark, I'm going to ask you a question about, let me ask you a question about mindset, because I can see you're a motivated man, right? So what mindset tips have you got to give to people? What's put you where you are? What sort of thing you have and beliefs do you have?
Mindsets. So I think there's the obvious things of just being willing to work hard, being the first in.
I've got to stop you because that is brilliant, right? That is absolutely brilliant, because people think there's a hack to be successful. There's no hack. No. The only hack is you got to work hard. You got to work people. And that's sorry, Mark, I interrupt you only because that's so good. In that, if you want to be successful in life, I don't know anyone successful. I know a lot of successful people. I don't know anyone that's made it through not working hard. And all we see is the end result. We see that person in your position that's got their own business. We don't see all the work you've gone through. So, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I can't. You're right. I think it's you have to be the first one in, last one out. I think some people have this thing of, if you're the manager, if you're the boss or anything like that, then well, you can say, people say it all the time, we don't have to worry about it, do you? You're the boss, you can take time off. But you're like, but you know what's needed to make sure the business is working, and the buck stops with you. If you want it to be successful, great. And equally, it hurts you more when things are not going well, doesn't it? So I think, you've got to work hard. You've got to put the effort in. I think you've got to have, for me, you've got to have the confidence that you're going to succeed. So even when you've got challenging times, knowing that you're going to get through it. And I think there's a balance, because I think there's a big difference in agency. I think you get this quite often where you can be really confident about your ability to do something, but some people can become quite arrogant. And I think you've always got to realise your place and recognise, that staff, for example, nothing without the staff I've got. My staff are fantastic. And without them, I wouldn't have a successful business to the level it is now. So you've got to recognise, I think, your limitations to a degree. But if I embark on doing something, I have to be 100% committed and convinced it's going to work. And I will do everything to make sure it does work, because I don't like losing or failing. I mean, you'd think I'm used to losing, bearing in mind I support everything. But apart from that, in work life, definitely not. So I think that's important. I think the other thing is probably, I guess, customer service. Again, it sounds obvious. But for me, with customer service, it's about sometimes putting the business ahead of how you are, yourself, if you like. What I mean by that is, I had a customer come in once, so it's probably the best way to explain it. I had a customer come in once, and they had a massive go at me in the office. They thought I'd lied to them about something. They pulled out of their sale there and then out of principle. They marched out of the office, walked down the high street. I chased them down the high street. In the middle of the high street with other people walking past, begging them to believe me, and said, honestly, that is not what's happened, I promise you. Managed to convince them. They came back to the office. we got it all through. The sale went through. Do you know what? They were awful that first time we dealt with them. And I've always said, your worst customers can be your best critics if you can make it work with them. And I'd had another agent contact me when that house first went on the market with us, and he said, do not deal with them. I've dealt with them already. I'll never deal with them again. This and the other. Well, we dealt with them. We overcame all the issues. And I think because when people are like that, they know how other people react to them all the time. When there's someone a bit different and they go the extra mile to try and help them and care about what they're doing, they appreciate it more. Do you know what? They bought several properties through us, sold probably 3 or 4 houses through us. They let properties through us. They've passed no end of people to us as well, recommendations to us. I have no idea how much money we've made out of them because I chased them down the high street. And I think most people wouldn't have done that. They would have said, what an idiot. You know, it's just naffed it.
I think you're probably right. So hard work. You got great values. You understand to put we've got to be a client-centric business, and we like Jeff Bezos has, and he said it's client-centric. Everything they do is let's think of the customer first, and that's right.
Of course it is.
Because money will come. If you provide great solutions, money will come.
Yeah, I think so. I think, mindset, I guess, is something mentioned before. So I think they're probably the 2 big things that for me are really important for success and that type of thing. But I suppose it's also what you learn as you go along. So if I look at my mindset now, it's still very much the same as it was before. I think the difference is I've learned things about myself as I've gone along. I think one of the big things I've learned is stress. I think it's really, I probably in many ways, I think if you ask anyone that works with me, they'll tell you I thrive on stress. Stress and busy, as much as I seem to hate it at the time, I'm lost without it in some ways. But I've definitely had times where, if I look at a couple of years back, I suppose I almost had a bit of a breakdown, really. And I was driving back from a meeting, nothing special had happened at this meeting at all, and I have no reason, I have no idea why, but I literally pulled over at the side of the road, just started crying, Oh, wow. I rang up my wife and she was on the phone to me and she's like, what on earth's happened? We've been together, 15 years now. At that point, it was only a couple of years ago, she'd never heard or seen me cry before. Right. Okay? I just don't tend to, I wasn't hiding it, I just don't tend to cry a lot. Yeah. I just bawling my eyes out, Yeah. And she'd say, what's the matter? I said, I don't know. And we discussed it later and she actually, bless her, she'd seen this coming, to a degree. She knew there was something wrong. And she'd said to me loads of times, there's nothing wrong. Yeah. And I think now when I can look back on it, I think I can see that I'd put so much pressure on myself, not just with work, but things outside of work. Yeah. And I think sometimes you get to that point where there's so much stuff going on. Yeah. Bit of a cliche, I know, but you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
So so first of all, Mark, thanks for opening up about that, because I think that's really, really, really important that people understand that we all go through that. However successful, people look to the outside, everyone is going through that. Everyone's going through some sort of problem. And mental health is a big issue and this and like that. How did you what's stopping you thing like that now? Do you see things differently? How do you help yourself?
I think so. I think with that, I had a few different times as well where I started having different things health wise, not chest pain, heart, but just like other places where I suppose tension, whatever it was. And I think you have to start assessing it and thinking, well, you need to, health's more important than anything else, of course. And actually, you've got to be healthy to be successful, I think, in many ways. Yes. And I think if you're healthy and you're happy and great, and I think that also, that flows, because then your people you're working with, if you're happy, they're happy, and happy people sell,
Oh, that's absolutely true. And I feel also you become an inspiration. So a couple of things I want to pick up on there is, first of all, there's a famous saying that, put your own gas mask on first, like when you're on an aeroplane. Yeah. Although you might perceive it selfish, if people you love next to you can't help them unless you're okay. So they do say put your own gas mask on first. And I think the other thing is, if you ask people what's your biggest priority, I'm sure everyone say family and health, and then you're going to look at, well, am I actually prioritizing my health at all? Like, am I going for a walk? Am I doing some exercise and things like this? So yes, really, really good point.
Well, family, is everything to me. My wife and my daughter especially, and and it's not fair for them either. When you're going home and you're stressed and things are not going well. So I think probably the biggest thing for me is learning. I wouldn't have admitted this sort of thing a long time ago, and I think it's becoming more spoken about these days, 100%. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. I think when you put a lot of pressure on you, that happens. If you put too much strain on your body in sport, you end up getting an injury. Same sort of thing. So
100%. But I want to ask you a quick question, because although it's going longer than normal podcast, I think no. I was saying you give us some great information, so I'd like to ask you a couple more questions, if that's okay. So sorry, the podcast this is generally a bit more, but Mark's giving valuable content. We've got to keep it up here as long as we can. So Mark, so stress is really important, like saying, and a little bit of stress is good because it gets you fired up, and you're kind of ready for the day and you attack things. So a little bit of stress is good. Do you have any like habits or rituals that you have to have that cut off?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've learned to try and recognise when I'm getting to that stage of stress, because stress still comes as part of the job. And I think for me, a big part of all this is my faith. And I think that's vitally important for me, and I think I can step back sometimes and look at it and say, everything's going to be all right, because I feel that God's got me in his hands and it'll all be okay eventually. It doesn't mean I don't have to work hard at things. But I mean, even just on a daily basis, I used to come into work and the first thing I would do is sit down and work out, right, what problems, how am I going to sort all these problems out today? And the stress starts straight away. Now I come in and I sit down and I pray, I just pray about the day, about customers, about how to make sure I manage the office and the business properly. And I think that just makes quite a big difference for me. It settles everything a bit, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good tip. And Mark, the fun thing I asked you, it's not the fun thing. 2 other questions, right?
Okay.
So you always work hard, and I know you've got a great brand, and I know you've got a great business, right? So I've seen you at your office as well. So have you got anything exciting coming up? The next 12 months, what's it going to look like for you? What can people expect to see?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, as you know, we've got Simpson's Property Experts, and that's literally just about to be launched. So, really excited about this. It's me and Andrew of Simpson have sort of come up with this idea. It's been a long time in the making, actually, and we're now just literally getting to the point of launching it pretty much this month. Simpson's Property Experts is a franchise model. So it's a hybrid agency version, and the whole point is we want to build on the existing offices we've already got and strengthen those. They are the core, that's really important, but we've got a blueprint that works really well. And what we want to do, I think there's a lot of people out there that are managers, negotiators, people that are in the industry that would love to run their own business, and they've got that entrepreneurial sort of side to them. There's so many barriers in the way, cost implications and everything, of course. And what we've tried to do is we want to try and expand the business by finding those people and then supporting them and helping them sort of set up, I suppose, really, and run a successful business. And I think one of the big differences, I guess, that there is, the hybrid model is not new, is it? It's not something that's only just come about this year.
So what's the difference between you and these other companies?
Well, I think there's several different differences. I think, firstly, one of the big points is that our model it's not a partnership model. It's not just a self-employed model like a lot of the companies. The people that embark on this journey with us are actually buying a franchise. They are going to own the business themselves, which means they're building something for the future for them. It's I guess I likened it the other day when I was speaking to someone. It's like renting a house or buying a house with a mortgage. You can have a business and you can put loads into it. You can rent somewhere and pay loads and loads and loads, but the day you leave, you've got nothing left.
Some of the other models haven't got that. Yeah, so if they,
there will be some models like it, without question. But I think a lot of the big players at the moment in there, the self-employed model is a little bit different. So we've tried to make sure all of the branding and everything is very much going to be focused around that particular person, not us. But we're there to help them. We've got a big support package with it. We've got a lot of training involved, ongoing, and when they first start as well. And we want to just see other people be really successful with it. And it's a good way for us to grow the business and support our existing business, of course, by expanding that way. Yeah, because I think things have changed. So I think how we have to do things these days is changing. But it's really exciting. Yeah.
Mark, very good. I like it. I know you got a good fan. I know you thought it. You spent a lot of time and money thinking all of that out. So I wish you luck on that. So that's good.
Thank you.
And last question, Mark, is if you had 100 quiz, I want to tell the podcast audience, right? what's something you've got cost you less than £100, and really you think, you got to go out and buy this, like it's less than £100, it's changing. What is that? What do you recommend?
So there is something I've got. It's not exactly cool, okay? But I'm telling you, it's changed my life.
Okay, go on.
I didn't even buy it. My wife got it for me, but I'm guessing it was definitely under £100. I've got this thing that goes round my neck and holds my mobile phone just here. Right? So when there's a football match on, rather than sitting in another room where, you know, I'm ignoring my wife because the football's on, I can watch the football with my headphones in and still be talking to her sitting there at the same time. And I can also work on my laptop and just keep looking up at it. Life changer.
That's multitask. What's that called? Do you know what it's called? I mean, people can...
No idea.
No,
I mean, when you put it on, you wouldn't want to walk around so people can see you wearing it because you look pretty daft. But genius invention, mate.
I'm going to try that. I'm actually going to buy it and I'm going to try it. And I'm going to try and do a review because I'll ask all my guests that question and I'll try a review and come up with the top in what I reckon.
Yeah.
Mark, listen, I don't want to take any more of your time up. But I really, really appreciate you coming on. I think you said some great stuff and I'm hope, you know, we're here to help the estate agency industry. And I reckon the things that you've said are things that I think all of us are going through. And the advice you've given, I think, is really amazing. I think it's, you know, very inspiring. And I appreciate your time.
No, hugely appreciate it. Thank you.
Mark,
Nice to meet you, Tony. Cheers, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.